Welcome back.
Hi, everyone.
Today's masterclass is really going to be really only about what makes the best projects and what makes the best projects or projects that really evolve as we start the design process and then start the building process. And we're really going to show people how we can pivot during from the beginning to the end and how we can really adjust to maybe new wants and needs.
In our process, really, it involves the client so much, your project, and how working through the details will create the project that you're looking for.
We really embrace the process, not just the set of plans. And how many times do we hear, oh, the set of plans, it's this is the static project.
Yes,
And that's
there it is.
anything, exactly. That's anything but what we do. We start with a detailed set of plans and you work through those plans, you get all the details that are important to our client at that time. What we've seen over 30 some years of doing this is that rarely do we ever have a client that says, okay, this, and this is what I want, this is what I need. And then at the end of the project,
It's
rarely
exactly
does it
that.
ever change.
Right.
It turns into, I don't want to say the complete opposite, but a lot of times it really pivots. Uh, you know, maybe not 180, but let's say I don't know, 45 degrees. So it's a direction, but it's not really the direction that they thought was super
At
important.
the start. Things are going to change, and we work through the initial stages of the design process. We work together with you, and we try to start putting your vision into our CAD system and so that you can see how the plan is coming together. And just throughout that first stage of the process, things are changing. We're finding out what are your goals, what are the must-haves in the project, and so we put those in, and then a lot of times we'll find, well, you know what? Let's put in some more of these must-haves on my wish list.
Yep.
That we can put this in, or even an important part is plan for the future if it's not in the budget in the initial. But we want to make sure that we are designing to which the way you live.
For the entire project.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then scale it back. And one of the things that I know you hear all the time because you're starting with the design process with the clients, but we hear it a lot is, and I think really this is where a disservice has been done by architects and designers that aren't in the design build process. Because if you're only in the design process, if that's all you do, you don't realize what it takes to get that project to the end because you're not seeing all the steps. And so many people now think, okay, I'm 80% drawings are 80% done. I've got to have everything finalized because it's the design process. How do I get back to them? Because once they hand me the plans and I go to the builder starts building. So who do I go to make these design adjustments?
Right. Right.
Under design build, you come right back to
exactly.
Craig.
It's all in house.
Craig is out there designing exactly.
And one of the nice things is in this process, we're very flexible. And as the project starts coming together, we realize, and you may see it because if you're in the house or you're stopping by during the course of the project, which we encourage uh, completely, is you know what? Hey, what if this window was moved over to this area, or this door doesn't flow as much as I thought when I saw it on the plans? How do I change this? And is it the end of the world? Does it have to stay there? And the answer to that, quite frankly, is no. We're encouraging your input because again, our philosophy is this is your home, and we want to make sure that you're comfortable with how the finished project is and that you love it. And so if it means moving that door over, and again, our process allows for faster changes. It's just a phone call or a quick meeting, whether It's Zoom or out on the site and say,
Exactly.
what is it gonna take to modify this area? And we work through it. There's no delays of, okay, now we have to send it out and get redrawn, repriced. We're doing that all in-house, so it just streamlines the whole process. It helps minimize delays of the project, if any,
Right.
which rarely there
And
is.
costs.
And,
A lot of times we can adjust it so quickly that we're not doing it after the electrician. The story that we just heard right before we came on this was they had recently done a project. And basically what happened was is they saw exactly what you're saying. They wanted to move some windows and they wanted to move some interior doors. By the time the architect got out there, which was a week and a half later, the electrician had already come through, the plumber had come through. And now it wasn't just a simple move. Now they had to get the subs back out and everything.
Yep.
And that was all just not because the client didn't know what they wanted, didn't realize that, hey, this flow is not really working for us. They knew it. They walked into the house, they walked through, they said we want to move these things, but the time frame to get everybody in there and then get back to the builder, it was about 2.5 weeks, they said, and by then everybody had already kept going.
Yeah, and you think about the costs involved with that.
Yep.
And the delays on the project, so it's not the best way to go. And that's why we've decided, and how we do our projects is, we have our project manager that's there
Yes.
full time, and he's also saying, you know what, we did this on another project, so you're gaining the experience from ourselves, from the guys in the field, from your vision, and we're pulling it all together and combining it to the project that you're going to love.
And what's key is, Craig, the project manager is involved during the design process.
Right.
So his input is involved. How is this going to go together? We're collaborating with the client, with the structural engineer. Everybody's got their input at the very beginning, but then it also allows them to know what's important to the client because they're hearing it firsthand during those meetings.
And like you said at the beginning, and I've talked about this before, how we spend a lot of time getting to know you and working with you and hearing your needs and your goals and your vision for the project. And so we're working very hard at the beginning to put all that into the plans. And so, like Scott said, it's not finished once we start. There's still opportunities that things are going to come up. How is the drainage now on a site? How is that affecting things that we've planned for, but things are still come up, and it's how you handle that and be the flexible design build firm that we are. We're going to work with you and work through these details and say, here, how would you like to handle this? You're still getting as much input, providing input to us for the direction of the project
Through the whole project.
Yep. Exactly.
Which is
Right
which is what we emphasize. A lot of times we met with the Myers and they had reached out to a few other architects before coming to us. They thought that really going to the architect, because that is what's driven, is go to the architect draws it, they send it out, you get a bid, you get multiple bids, and then the process of construction starts. The problem is it's so disconnected throughout that whole process. We send out 2 surveys at the beginning, and that's really just to get to know you, to understand what's important. Are you a sports family? Are you a drama family? We just did a great stage. I know it was a sort of a multi-room, but because the kids were both involved in drama, we did that stage with lighting and everything, and they were able to practice their parts down in the basement area.
Yeah.
But then they could also sit there and watch movies and other things, with the family. But we're finding out all the things that are important to you. And I know the Myers, I know that they said, we want to make sure we get every answer exact on this when we fill this out and sign it back. And you said, no, this is the start of you thinking
Yeah,
about what it is.
exactly.
This isn't your final decision. And they said, well, we thought we had to have everything finalized because once the plans are done, that's it. And we're like, no, that's not it. That's just the start.
A lot of that is worked out through the early stages of the designs, and that's why we start with the preliminary design phase, where you're starting to see the space come together. And then getting it your round of input, and that may take a time or two to fine tune that. And again, bottom line is we're not done.
Right.
Start the project, seeing things, start seeing rooms come together. How far out the addition is. Hey, wait a minute. What if we went another 2 feet out further?
Which is why we always stake out the addition in the yard so that people can sit and look at it
Yeah.
while we're finalizing those plans. And you can go out there. It's not, 2 days before we come out to start the foundation. No, it's months before so that you can get an idea. Okay, this is the space. This is what we're working with. Oh, you know what? This feels a lot bigger than I thought, or this feels smaller than what I thought. And we can make those adjustments as we go. I think that so many people have, I'll say, bought into the design, bid, build, and it's really been sort of I'll say forced down a lot of throats. And we worked with a lot of architects, so it's not like it's not like architects can't come up with a great design. It's not like they can't be part of the process. The problem is that through their schooling, through really how things are being, I'll say, sold to the public today, is the opposite of how it started, which was you became a builder first. You were a master builder first, and then you started design. Then you design. Then you moved up to designing. But if you don't know how to build, how do you know how to design?
Sure. Yeah.
And now it's flip-flopped. And there's a lot of reasons for why that happened, and sort of happened the turn of the century, and basically the beginning of the 19th century was when they started to move towards the architects were here in their own building and the builders were over here. And we saw it steadily move down. It took a long time for that to happen because when the architects moved over to their own sort of architectural firm, they still knew how to build because they came from that process.
Had that knowledge.
Right.
Yep.
The problem is the longer they got away from that, they weren't out seeing the projects getting built. They weren't out really understanding how the projects go together. So they weren't seeing the problems, which we see problems all the time. We see problems with the materials. We see problems with, oh, you know what? This wasn't probably the best way to do this. And it's a learning process. But if they're completely separated, you don't really learn from things. Oh, you know what? If we would have just put that beam over 2 feet, that would have made everything so much easier.
And again, we're doing this every day. So we've had that experience and knowledge that we can bring from previous projects and show where, okay, here's what we did here, where we made it a wider opening, or we were able to open this kitchen up, or we framed it a little bit differently so that we could expand this area and eliminate a post or a beam in here, or we could upset this beam and just make for a nicer visual and more pleasing project.
Explaining the process of the design, which I hear you do all the time. Clients come in, they sit down here, we have great discussions with our project managers, with just Craig and I, with Craig. And what's funny is people come in with this notion that these are the things that I'm supposed to do as the client. I'm supposed to pick the finishes. I'm supposed to pick the lighting. I'm supposed to, oh, you mean I can get involved in how the cabinetry is laid out? Oh, I can get involved in not just selecting the cabinetry, but we want to know, how are you going to use the kitchen? How do you cook? What is the process of your family and how do you live in the house? And it's really sort of lost with sort of that old design bid build process. And it really limits how much the client can be involved.
So many times, and we started off in that direction. And
Oh yeah,
you,
yeah,
as the builder, you would meet for maybe 15 minutes and have that
yep.
discussion with them when you're looking at the set of plans and walking through the house, things like that.
Yep.
And you just didn't ever get to know the homeowners, your clients, and what was important to them. And so this process just solves all those potential issues uh, and figures out how you're living in the house now, or maybe you're buying it and you're something, but how you live and how you see yourself living in that space is so important to the design that it's a crucial part in the initial design phase. And so it doesn't end there. It's even through construction as
That's what I was
you're
gonna
in.
say. The framing goes up. We're out there. Those plans are really just a good guide of what we think is going to be the direction of the project. When that natural light starts flowing in, when you start walking through the area, a new home or a renovation, you start moving the wall. You take out that wall, and all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, you know what? This room, the whole atmosphere in here completely changes. So what I thought was going to be important when we were designing and talking about selections, we realized, oh, you know what? Maybe half of the things are important, but those other things don't really matter, or we need to pivot some.
I just was speaking with a client earlier today, and an important part of they've been in the house now for over 10 years, and the house was originally designed to not take advantage of the best part of the property was the back views.
Yep.
And so just hearing that, can change the design or the direction completely of how do we open that up? How do we make it more accessible from the addition? Maybe the addition will be on the side or the front of the home, but we still want to make sure that we address just one more thing in this project. And it all happens through communication, open lines of communication.
It's funny you say that, because the webinar that we sat in on, what was that, last week? It's funny. It was with architects and designers, and one of the things that the speaker said was, basically, if you're making a lot of changes during the building process, because there was an architect that said, how do I limit these changes? I've given them a fixed price, and people don't like to pay to have it come out, and because usually an architect, if he's involved during the construction process, he's going to charge as he comes out. So he charges each thing, and most architects don't necessarily want to be involved in the design process. They want to go on to design the next project, because that's where they make most of their money. It's not going out and quote babysitting the builder. The builder doesn't want the architect coming out, doesn't typically want the client coming out, which was a good point you made before. We want as much involvement as you have time for, because we want you to come out and be invested in that project as much as you can, so that we can make those changes
as part of the team.
Right. The funny thing was on that webinar is basically, I felt like my takeaway is that if there was any sort of, they kept using the word evolution, which I thought was an interesting word to describe changes. I guess that's just a better way of saying we made changes to the plans. It was like it was a failure. You didn't get enough information. The architect didn't get it. And because those plans, that's it. You give the plans, the builder builds it, and everybody's happy. That is fantasy land, because new construction, it's a little easier, but certainly renovation, where you're doing the demolition and making changes, you're seeing that job evolve throughout that whole process. And of course, your vision is going to evolve and change. And That's what we want to have happen. We wouldn't think that it's a failure that we made changes. We feel like we've done our job. If we're evolving through the job as you're discovering what's more important to you from the beginning to the end.
And it just makes that project so much better. And that's always our goal. We want to make sure, and you notice we haven't said that we've directed the change order. We'll make suggestions and say, again, we've done this on similar projects. We've come across this. Here's a solution for this. But you're basically in the driver's seat. You're controlling. I would like to make the kitchen a little bit larger. I would like to add some seating at the countertop, the breakfast bar. Those types of things. You're in control. That's the key.
And the other part is because we're not afraid to pivot during the job, we're not afraid to make suggestions. We know from all the discussions that we've had through the whole design process, our project managers, everybody, that when we start to see it come together and we think maybe that vision isn't exactly what you're thinking, we're going to bring it up. Sometimes it is. Nope, that is what we thought it was going to be. Other times it's like, yeah, you're right. I thought, this bench and seating area was going to be a little bit bigger, and now this room, what do we do? Do we, before we order those cabinets, do we eliminate, one row of the cabinets at the end? Do we maybe move it to the other side of the room? All the things that that you've done through each project, and because we're not afraid of doing that, we bring up those suggestions. Where another builder that's more rigid and also just wants to get the job done.
Yeah.
They want to get on to the next job. The architect wants to get on to his next job. That builder wants to get on to their next job. We want to get the job. We want to get it right for you. Right. So that when you walk into that kitchen, you're not saying, boy, I wish we would have done that. Or walk into that family room, boy, it would have been perfect if those windows were just another 2 feet over, or maybe we do another window, which is a triple window rather than a double one. All the things that we know that we've seen and have happened.
And I'll touch on something that we talked about earlier is making sure that we are planning for the future, the entire project.
Yes.
And occasionally, recently, we've had a project that's going along so well, the homeowner decided to add a second portion of the addition.
Right.
During phase one, it was ultimately they said, there's no way we could do it now, so we'll plan for it, but we'll end up doing it in the future. And the project was moving along, we were on budget, and they were happy with everything that we were doing, and they said, let's do it now.
We're already under construction. Let's keep going. And also one of the things that I heard them say to you, Craig, was Janine, I know she said, we thought it was going to be a lot more disruption to our life and how things are going. They had children, and I think two were in middle school and one was in elementary. They thought that it was going to be such chaos that they couldn't really fathom going through this whole process, and they realized, this is not nearly as much of a disruption as they thought.
And let's do it now.
Yep, let's just keep going. I think one of the things that we probably don't emphasize enough, but really our process is allowing to make changes, which is really allowing the client to customize. And not only is it a complete custom project, it's also completely customized as to little things. Oh, you know what? I want to move this niche over just a little bit in the, or you know what? I do want lighting in the niche. I do want, it's not, oh, I got these static set of plans and that's it. It's, I can see things. I think the other thing that we really help people, especially you do, Craig, is, they come with these pictures of these projects that they think, oh, this is exactly what I want my bathroom to look like. This is what I want the outside. I want the fire pit area, which I think we'll definitely touch on next, about how we are designing the whole project. We're not sending you to a landscape architect. We're not sending you, oh, go find your own landscaper. You know, we're managing that whole project from beginning to end so that we know the wiring that needs to go in, the gas lines for the fire pit, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The pool, the
entire
pool house, the sports
overall
courts
plan.
that we do, the barn dominiums, all those things, even if it doesn't happen all at once, like you said, everything is planned for so that it's not going backwards when you go to the next step.
And that's key. That's definitely one of my pet peeves, wasting
Yeah.
clients' money, and having to take something back down for the future phase 2, phase 3, that
More
kind of thing.
disruption. More
Yeah.
now we gotta come
Take-
in and demo
yeah.
your family room.
Through the finished phase,
Yes.
Yep. Plan for it. Run the wires across there, or place the extra foundation where it's needed. That type of thing. So there's some tricks that we can make sure we're taking care of in the initial phases to help streamline the project length, to minimize extra costs and minimize disruption.
And I don't want it to sound like, oh, well, we do all these things just because we're great people. We do it because we know that the client is going to be happy at the end,
Right,
which is why we
What
have
they're looking for.
very happy clients. It's the end product, and it's also the process to that end product, which I think a lot of builders and architects don't get, that the process is, I don't want to say more important than the end product, but I'll say it's just as important, because if the process is terrible and you have an end product, what does everyone tell you about? Oh, well, this happened and that happened. So really, they aren't necessarily happy with the end product, because they want to tell you about all the pitfalls of the process to get to it.
It's, I think, just we, through communication and the unknown that can be overwhelming when starting to talk about or think about an addition renovation project, and we realize that, and so we're here to talk about construction, work through the details, walk you through how the space is going to look and how it's going to take shape. That's what we do. So it's more conversations, and if that's what it takes to make you feel comfortable, that's what we'll do.
We know that the project gets better through the process, especially through the design build
Right.
process and through our process. So we know that the more that we communicate, the more that we know as we work through and we find out, oh, you know what, we thought this was important from our client, but that wasn't quite as important. And we know that at the end, it only makes for a better project and a happier client.
And many times we've gone the extra mile to make sure that, you know what, a little bit extra here, we'll do that, and we'll take a look at that and see how we, again, it's going to make for a better project. That's what we're looking for, and we know that's what you're looking for.
Moving windows. I know the last one that we did with the Newmans, that project started out with sort of limited hardscaping. It did have a pool and a pool house, but then we added an auxiliary garage. We added really extensive backyard sort of
The playground area.
the putting green, all those things. And by allowing, I say allowing, it's really just doing what the client wants, which is what we try to do, while helping them make their choices, make the right choices, explaining to them why certain things may not be the best solution. But ultimately, if you choose that, we are going to do that. If you know, okay, I'm good with, I'm going to have to get that power wash, every year or every half a year, if you're in a more wooded area and things like that. But that's the look I like, then we're going to do it. We're not going to tell you we can't do that, but we're going to explain to you why you may not want to do certain, selections or things like that.
And let you make the final decision. We'll give you all the the facts and the figures, and you can make an educated decision as to how you want the project to come together.
I know that the Newmans, well, I know that from Stephanie, they've done a number of other projects, so they knew the pitfalls of working through. This was their fourth home. They knew, okay, we've done it this way, we've done it that way, and then they said, why doesn't everyone do it the way you guys do this? And one of the things that I took away from a conversation that we had early on with them was they felt like from when they did design, bid, build, it was like every conversation that they had either walking through the house, which they only got to do three
Site visits.
three site visits. And then the other thing was, well, can you send me pictures? Can you do this? No. And which we've talked about Buildertrend many times on other things, and the communication that's through Buildertrend so that you don't have to be there all the time, the sharing of the
Videos and pictures of the project.
They felt like the conversation that they had with the architect, like every conversation they had, they felt like it was like an inconvenience. It was a
interruption.
Yeah, an interruption to their process, not like what the client wants and wants to be able to, communicate, oh, this may not be exactly what I want. It was like, so they felt like they really couldn't express changes that they wanted to make. They felt uncomfortable bringing it up. And really, that's what we don't want anyone to feel. If you see something that you don't like, or it's not turning out the way you want, we want you to say it right away so that we can pivot or maybe explain or show you, oh, you know what, you do need to wait until the next stage and this is going to look the way that you think. I think really one of the big things that we're discussing every single masterclass and video is the design build way, and how that if you really hire a design build firm that is doing it all under one roof. They're doing your selections, they're doing your design, either through a certified designer or an architect. They're doing the structural. They're understanding when those plans come out exactly what needs to go on. You're going to get the best project. You're going to have the best process through design, construction, and the end process is going to be the easiest process.
And the more input that everyone on the team can provide and get the feedback from you, the homeowner, it's just going to make for a better project, and everyone is involved and understands and is working together for the same goal throughout from start to finish. I think that's the important.
One of the things that comes to mind is when we added the basketball court next to the auxiliary garage in the pool house, and then we wanted to do the sports court. The one thing that we brought up very early on is we need to figure out how that affects the drainage and the grade, because we had not started the bio pond yet. And did we need to, incorporate a larger pond? With just working with a builder out on the site, they're not going to take into account that because they're not doing the design part of it. So they're going to say, okay, sure, I'll go ahead, when the paper comes out, we'll just pave this area and this can be your, your sports court or whatever. And then you find as you move down to the next step, oh, you know what? Now we need to go back and figure out what do we do with this extra
because they weren't involved in the initial.
Right. That's why really handling everything is it's so crucial. You can't. We know communication is hard. Communication is hard with just being in the same room with two people. Someone can interpret something differently than what's said, which is why we really stress. And we'll repeat the same thing to a client to make sure that we're understanding exactly what's important to them, right? And why they may want to do something or maybe not do something. If you're not handling every aspect of a job, Now you're relying on a landscape or a landscape architect. You may be relying on several different people. Maybe you're doing irrigation for a long. You're involving a lot of different people, and if it's not coming all back to one person that's understanding the complete project, you're going to have mistakes made.
It's very segmented.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm only looking at this. I'm only doing this part. And you need someone that's overseeing and guiding and collecting everyone's needs and input to create the overall finished project.
And it's really creating space that you feel comfortable in, and that you're gonna. It's the space that you thought we were going to create,
Right.
and I think that's like the key thing. It's not what the architect envisioned for themselves. It's what you envisioned for yourself, and that's the space that we're creating, and just really giving you guidance to say, oh, you know what? Yes, you probably do want to make this a couple feet larger, and here's why. Or you know what? You don't need to do this, or let's add an extra light or something like that.
Right. And you always have the final say. This is your home. So we're making suggestions. We're creating these potential changes or revisions with your input. And you say, you know what, Craig, that looks great. But now, you know what, we changed our mind. We don't want to do it. This happens.
Yeah.
Again, it's our ultimate goal, getting you in the home that you're looking for and that you're going to love living in. That's ultimately what matters to us.
We're helping you embrace, I'll say, uncertainty without fear, without fearing. You think you need to know everything, and that's why I think a lot of times architects and designers are like, oh, here's your set of plans, this is all you need. And it's like, okay, we know from experience. I mean, we used to do commercial, we've done a lot of different things, and when we pivoted 15 years ago to design build, I mean, that was really I'll say, the light bulb moment for us, where we said, okay, this is the way that it always should have been done, and not well, like you said, segmented. And I think a lot of times, because people are fearful, you're not doing this every day,
right?
So you don't know exactly. So you want someone to tell you, here it is, and this is all you need. Where the uncertainty is okay. You don't need to start, like when we started construction, you don't have to know every single thing, because what you think is going to evolve into something slightly different.
We will, lost my train of thought, but it's like Scott's saying, it can be overwhelming. And I always say, we just want you to be comfortable with your selection, with selecting us to handle your project, comfortable working with us, comfortable with the investment level of the project, just comfortable knowing that you're going to get the project you want. That's
a strong team that's on your side, that's collaborating with you throughout the whole part of it. What you just said, transparency on the budgeting. It's not, oh, okay, I told the architect or designer I've got, whatever, 100, 200, and then they go and you don't hear anything from them for 4 months. They come back with this huge, elaborate thing, which is what we saw all the time, which was not anywhere close to the budget.
Yes.
The problem is the architect and designer, they don't know the numbers because they're not doing it every day. We're designing and building. We know what
real time.
We know what our costs are. We know what our subs costs are. We know what material costs are. We're showing you, as you make those changes, oh, you know what? If we shrink this down a little bit, this gets you closer to your original range, investment level. All those things happen. And I hate when people say it, because when we started out, obviously we didn't have the experience that we have now doing this for over 40 years. The experience is what you need to be able to convey the process to somebody else. If you don't have the experience, you can't tell the stories about the 10 other projects that you've done like this.
Yeah.
You can't, because it's your first project. So there's just a lot of things that end up happening throughout the process that you need that experience. And unfortunately, the architects and designers don't have that side of the experience. We have both sides because we see it from start to finish.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about a remodel or a new construction, give us a ring, fill out our contact form. We'll be happy to discuss our process. Hopefully not in this much detail, but we'll be happy to show you how the process of design build is really the best way to do any new build or remodel.
Absolutely. We want you to be comfortable dealing with us. So it starts with a conversation, just no pressure. Craig, Scott, I'm thinking about adding to my home, or I want to renovate my kitchen. What's involved? What, you know, what do you think potential costs are? What are some hurdles that I would experience? It's just a conversation, and that's how it all starts. And we'd love to hear from you and talk to you about it. And that's what we're here for. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Have a great day.